Today, I'm taking my first steps into Operation Monster Force by Fresh Monkey Fiction. Why this figure in particular? Because it makes for a perfect Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, soldier. I might be excited about the potential of using this as General Thunderbolt Ross, but this figure is marketed as General Brown, so that's how we're going to be looking at him through most of the video. Starting with the packaging, and it is so refreshing to be looking at something new. Operation Monster Force has a really cool logo. We see that again up top, along with logos for Fresh Monkey Fiction and Big Bad Workshop. If you didn't know, this line is a Big Bad Toy Store exclusive. Simple names and logos on the spine. In that regard, it kind of reminds me of a DC Multiverse. But the figures are numbered, this one being 24. In case you thought this was a windowless box, it's actually a front flap, similar to a NECA Ultimate. That said, Monster Force is actually held on with magnets. Thanks to those magnets, that front flap sits a lot more flush. And unlike a NECA Ultimate, which just has a picture of the character on the inside flap, Operation Monster Force has a comic book style backstory of the character. I really like that. Instead of waves or series, this line has seasons, and in addition to figure photography, we get an extensive write-up that you can pause if you want to read. There's also renders of the other characters in the season, and something I love to see, which is credit for the creators. For packaging, General Brown and Operation Monster Force have earned 5 points. Moving on to presentation, and I think it's time to deploy this officer, but I really want to save this box, so forgive me if I'm a little bit more gentle this time. Well, so much for trying to be gentle. First things first, and General Brown stands at 6 1/4 inches, or they're about 16 centimeters. My only experience with Fresh Monkey Fiction is the Naughty or Nice collection, so I am in no way, shape, or form qualified to tell you what parts of this are reused and what might be new. All I can say is that it's awesome. For the most part, this is obviously just a suited body, but even the parts that are plain are still very well done. Little touches like the pleating and the pants. In terms of the body, of course, the centerpiece is that coat. All the pockets and buttons are accounted for, but more than the buttons themselves, every individual buttonhole, just how crisply they're painted, and then you have all the metals. Not just the sculpted ones, but especially the painted ones that are stamped on. It really elevates the whole thing. Now, I will say the coat itself is a rubber overlay, so the shirt and tie are separate. Also, you'll notice that the name badge is blank, but we'll be coming back to that later. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out his 4 stars. Very crisply sculpted and painted, just so incredibly well done. And then, of course, you have this really wonderful head sculpt. Not so much the body frame, of course, but the face reminds me a lot of Carl Weathers. Whether that's an intentional homage or not, I couldn't tell you. I just know it looks good. And I really like this gray that they used for the hair. Definitely helps to make him look distinguished. As for the hands, he's pre-posed with these kind of tiger claw looking ones, but we have a lot more to look at later. Lastly, and I just want to comment on the finish, it's not completely matte, but it's not too glossy either. More importantly, the face looks very lifelike, and unlike a lot of mass-produced figures, the joints actually match the rest of the limbs. Unsurprisingly, for presentation, General Brown gets 5 points. If you're having a good time so far, I want you to give this video a big ol' like. Moving on to Poseability, and this was a really pleasant surprise. From the top, the General's head is on a ball joint and a disc swivel. Remember though that he has interchangeable head and neck pieces, meaning that there's also a ball joint at the base of the neck. Using both those joints to look up and just wow. For perspective, and here's looking straight, and then here's down, which you're not going to get any better than that. Thanks to that extra neck piece, he has a very natural amount of side-to-side tilt, and a completely unnatural all the way around. Moving down, and swivel hinge shoulders allow him to raise his arms over 90 degrees, and get complete rotation. Additionally, it's hard to tell, but there is some kind of a rotator cuff or butterfly in there, so his arms also get forward and back. Working our way down though, and the General has bicep swivel, pinless double jointed elbows with a very deep end, and wrists that can swivel and hinge either up or down. A few of his hand options hinge side to side, but we'll talk about that in Playability. Now, moving to the middle, we do have that long coat, which is going to get in the way. I'm not entirely sure what's going on under there, but there does does seem to be a ball-jointed waist. That being the case, he can arch back this far, which is more than I was expecting. For contrast, here standing straight, just hinging him at the waist though, and there's not a whole lot of hunch forward. If you hinge the legs though, and obviously you get a lot. That said, General Brown does get a bit of side to side, and of course twist. Below the jacket, and the General has ball-jointed hips. Not only that, but they also have drop-down hinges. But these are the ones that are kind of like Mafex. So instead of a thigh cut, he twists at the hip. There are slits in the side to help. Getting ahead of myself though, and he does kick about 90 degrees, and this far backwards. Even with the slits in the side, it's not the deepest bend in the world. That said though, and here's how far inward he can twist, and how far outward. Moving on down, and he has more than a decent bend on those pinless double-jointed knees. No toe articulation, but there is a swivel in the ankle, along with hinge, and like me thinking I may have discovered my favorite new toy line, pivot. The thing that just showing you the joints doesn't articulate is how smooth they are. I was expecting the joints to be stiff and in need of softening up, but that's not the case. Right out of the box, they all work perfectly and are very intuitive, but none of them feel loose or gummy. For Poseability, this 4-star General gets 4 points. Moving on to Playability, and just in terms of accessories, we have a lot to talk about. As I said in presentation, General Brown comes pre-packed with these kind of tiger claw hands. He's also got a pair of combination karate chop, doing the robot flying around, / saluting hands, as well as a pair of fists. Those will also be your best bet for a static pose. Dual weapon holding hands. Those ones hinge side to side by the way. And one lone pointing hand for commanding troops, picking his nose, and suggesting other videos you can watch in the end screen. That pointer by the way also hinges side to side. The best part is that General Brown comes with 3 additional heads, making him an army builder. Now, fair warning, I did need to use a hairdryer to get the neck to pop off, but I imagine the more I swap it out, the less of a problem that'll be. Oof, pretty bad ring around the collar you got there, General. Just to be safe though, I'm gonna hit this guy with a hairdryer before popping him on. Yeah, this is pretty much everything I could have ever wanted for Thunderbolt Ross. The signature look of superiority, and of course the epic stash. There is no way on earth that Fresh Monkey Fiction didn't know what they were doing. There's also this head, which is equally well done, though I'll admit it doesn't actually remind me of anyone personally. If you can think of anyone, sound off in the comments below. Lastly, and there's this head, which is pretty cool. Big old scar on the cheek signifying his battle prowess. Really good job on the textured hair. Again, I'm not drawing any comparisons to anyone, either real or fictional, but if you are, let me know in the comments. One of the best things about the heads, though, is that the neck pegs are compatible with Marvel Legends. So if you wanted to dig into your fodder box to make even more generals, you absolutely could. Conversely, you can use the alternate heads to unmask heroes and villains, or customize new background characters. But wait, there's more! The General also comes with a baggie full of smaller baggies containing even more accessories. Little baggies like this are how I store my accessories. Honestly, I have bought so many of these little bags at this point that I've probably been flagged as a drug dealer. So first things first, and we have this bag of alternate hands. In fact, it's all 9 of General Brown's hands to accommodate the other heads, meaning that this one figure comes with a total of 18 hands. Unfortunately, they did mess up on mine and give me 2 left-handed chop hands, so sadly these 3 heads can't salute. Still, with so much in the box, I kind of feel like I can't complain. Additionally, we also have this bag of options, probably the most notable being the hat. I really love the sculpting of the seal. I'm also really impressed by how well it sits. It'll come off, but it's still nice and snug. Here's how the bearded head looks with that, and of course this one also looking good. And of course there's General Brown himself, but we're not done accessorizing. The good General comes with not 1, but 3 different pairs of sunglasses. The gold frames tie nicely into the buttons and trim. That being said though, I do think the silver probably stands out the best. It also ties nicely into his stars. Once again though, and you can also use them on your Marvel Legends. I don't know just how naturally they sit, but you're also going to have that issue with the actual Monster Force figures too. Honestly, I just continue to be blown away by all the options. And speaking of options, remember this blank name tag? We have a slew of stickers that we can put there. Still, since I'll be displaying this as General Ross, I'm going to keep it blank. Additionally, the General comes with a sidearm. It's worth noting that they use the weapons from Gridiron Iron Studios. That'll fit just fine in either of the trigger hands. Finally, and we have a figure stand. Unlike the name tag, this is specifically General Brown. There's also a nice paint wash for all the dings and cracks. And yep, that's pretty nice and tight. Well packed as he may be, Playability is more than just accessories. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Once again, my only other exposure to Fresh Monkey fiction is the Naughty or Nice collection, so here's Santa. In my headcanon, Santa's part of the Operation Monster Force universe. Bringing out some other 6-inch scale figures though, and from one general to another, Star Wars Black Series is definitely way too small. Indiana Jones and Power Rangers works though. Obviously though, in this line is going to go great with your G.I. Joe Classified series. Moving over to Mattel though, and he does skew a bit small for wrestling or for Jurassic World figures. As for DC Comics, and using my highly scientific Batman Rebirth scale, he goes great with DC Icons. Scaling wise, and he'll work fine with DC Universe Classics or DC Comics Multiverse. Stylistically is a different story though. DC Essentials, however, is way too big. Same thing with DC Multiverse. Most especially the battle-damaged one. That said, and I do want to use this mainly for General Thunderbolt Ross, so I've gotta look at some Marvel options. First things first, and here's puny Banner from the Grey Hulk 2-pack, but where there's Banner, the Incredible Hulk can't be far behind. This is the 80 Years 2-pack version, but if you want to track down either a Harrison Ford or William Hurt or even a Sam Elliott head, here's how he looks with the live action. For another bright green thorn in General Ross's side, and here's the sensational She-Hulk, and for a fellow Incredible Hulk foe, here we have the Leader. The Leader being a perfect segue to Thunderbolt Ross's alter ego, the Red Hulk. Here we have the comic-style deluxe version, and then here we have the movie version, which looks so unlike Harrison Ford you could easily use it on your comic book shelf. Hopefully Hasbro takes another swing at Red She-Hulk with their new She-Hulk body, but in the meantime, here's the original. But for some general Marvel comparisons, here's Captain America, 80 Years and extremist versions of Iron Man, and then for just a good general Vulcan mold comparison, here we have a couple of Cyclopses, along with X-Men 97 and Gamerverse versions of Wolverine. Those Wolverines are a great transition to a relative scale comparison with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here's the General with Stealth Iron Man. My flabbers are gasted by how many options and accessories this figure comes with. Mispackaged salute hands notwithstanding, and factoring in how many other lines he can scale with, for playability, I'm giving the General 6 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price, and at $40 this is an incredible value. If you'd like to see me review more Operation Monster Force, let me know in the comments. Either way, I have a feeling my collection is only just beginning. For price, I'm giving General Brown 5 points, averaging out to a perfect total of 5 out of 5. For more videos, check out one of these, and until next time, play nice and have fun. For another bright green thorn in General Ross's side, and here's a sensational and then for just a good general Vulcan mode